Well, look, I don't know really where Steve's been for the last 3 years. I mean, we've just been watching a merger, for instance, of Southern Cross, Macquarie and Fairfax, where there was significant divestment of certain properties that were part of the group and part of the merger. I think we'd need to know what Steve's really talking about. He doesn't seem to understand how the laws currently work and how there is a guarantee of very significant diversities. We have put in a very rigorous framework that will transition us out of the old media settings that Paul Keating had in place 20 years ago. Steve fought and kicked all the way, but we managed to get them through. And of course, we continue to look at the laws if they need adjusting. So far, they don't seem to have needed it.
The trade-off, it seemed, for relaxing the cross and foreign media ownership laws at the time was the provision of 2 new digital services, a Channel A and a Channel B. Now,
well, more than that.
12 months on, though, there are no new services. Have you failed on that promise?
No, certainly not. I mean, anyone who knows anything about spectrum planning and the rollout of 2 new digital channels in the digital space would know that you've got to have a very rigorous process to make sure that there's not interference, and you've got to be clear about the conditions under which the new licences will be offered. So that's only part of the new diversity, the new services. We're moving to multi-channelling. We've removed the restrictions from the ABC and SBS. We've just enabled a new children's channel, another $82 million to enable a digital children's channel. We are moving along with putting new services in place. It's a very exciting space, the new digital space, and I'm very, very pleased that we've been able to enable it.
I guess this is an opportunity then to try and work out what you see for these new services. Firstly, on Channel A, this is the narrowcasting licence. Stephen Conroy, first to you, what do you envisage that looking like? What sort of services would viewers get?
Well, Helen Coonan's designated ACMA to make judgments about this, and I've asked ACMA now continuously at estimates and any other forum I've had them to tell me what is it that you are defining as a service that's allowable. They have stated that under the Act they cannot reveal this. This has made it absolutely impossible for me to make any judgment about what is and isn't going to be allowed. So Helen may have access to that. She might want to comment on that. But I know, certainly from comments I've seen from Helen this week, as well as myself, the Parliament has made it very clear that this is about narrow. And if we find that ACMA have granted applications that fall into the broad category, we'll be saying no.
Okay, so you don't want it to look like a free-to-air or a
Absolutely not. I mean, the Parliament's been very clear about this. This is not a broadcast. This is about narrow niches. And if ACMA have gone and overstepped what the Parliament is directed, then the Parliament will deal with it.
And Senator Coonan, has there been a hold-up in trying to get this definition so that...
No, there's been consultation, obviously. I mean, there's some interest in Channel A, and the free-to-airs are obviously concerned that there's not a 4th channel by stealth. We happen to agree that that shouldn't be the case, and that was the policy intent, that there not be one at this stage. And so we'll make sure that that won't happen. I don't think there's any policy difference between us on that.
Channel B is the one that everybody's interested in.
Everyone's interested.
This is the mobile
yes.
TV.
Well, it's a much more freed up space. It's available to aggregators, and there's an access regime so that people can get on the platform, and it will be very much an open access arrangement, and it can have snack TV, mobile TV. I mean, it really is a very, very important new addition to the suite of things that you'll be able to get in Australia.
And we don't know, though, how much either of you are expecting to get for the licence auction on Channel A and Channel B.
I wouldn't be able to make some assessment about that now, and that's one of the reasons why we haven't rushed it. That's been something that's been very much supported by players who've expressed an interest in it. We want to make sure that we know what we're selling. As I say, that the spectrum is rigorous. Then you can seriously look at getting best value for taxpayers if you've actually been careful about how these new digital services are allocated and what you're actually selling or allocating.
And Stephen Conroy, do you have any problems with any restrictions on Channel B?
Well, I think one of the problems that, and what's caused one of the delays, there are some potential spectrum clashes that there seems to be, and again, ACMA have not been prepared to divulge this publicly, which has been very frustrating, certainly for myself and for some of the participants who are trying to progress this. ACMA need to come clean and say, what are the spectrum problems? Is there really a clash of spectrum in Sydney? Is there really a clash of spectrum on the Gold Coast? What do we need to do to fix these so that we can actually get ahead? It's disappointing that after 12 months, as you say, we've seen nothing but consultations. The Minister promised that these auctions would take place earlier this year, and they haven't.
Now, the subscription TV industry, of course, continues to push for more reform of the anti-siphoning list. Minister, firstly to you, why hasn't there been more action on this?
Well, what I've actually instigated is some proper monitoring of what actually happens with the anti-siphoning list, and to ensure that it works the way in which it's intended, David. That's very important. And I've instigated a use it or lose it system, and we're now, I think, up to about fourth lot of reports, and we're in a position where we can make some judgments about it. I haven't actually made those judgments, but certainly they're in prospect. And of course we'll be reviewing the whole list by 2009 and looking critically at what should happen by the time we start to switch off the digital signal, which will happen in 2010. So all of these things will converge, and we will have a look at the ongoing functioning of the list and its purpose and what should be on it. But in principle, can I say that I think it's very important that Australians can continue to enjoy the sports that they love on free-to-air. That's been part of our culture, and we wouldn't be wanting to interfere with it. But we do want to make sure that rights holders and others with an interest, including the subscription TV industry, do have a fair go too. And I think the way the list now works, when they pass on certain rights and certain games, it works reasonably well.
There is a recent example of the Seven Network apparently just doing a deal for the Australian Open tennis, getting all of the games, or the free and the subscription TV rights to all of the matches. But can we guarantee that they'll show them all, that Australians won't miss out on some of them?
Well, let's be clear. Firstly, Labor supports the use it or lose it provisions that have been talked about and discussed, and the Minister's not made any final decisions on them, but we support that. We don't want to see the sort of hoarding. We're very disappointed to see that the ABC aren't planning to show the World Netball Final. This is a premier sporting event. The matches, and if it goes to form, it should be Australia-New Zealand. These are fantastic athletic contests. So the ABC should be making sure that the final of the netball is shown live, because that is an abuse of its position if it's not showing such a sport that is so supported in Australia. But in terms of the tennis, Channel 7 actually show tennis from 10 o'clock in the morning with a few newses along the way, almost till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night. There's only so many games it can actually show. It should be engaged in discussions so that more of the tennis matches can be shown, and I understand in the past that has been the arrangement, on pay TV. So we would welcome there being an agreement, as has been reached now in the AFL, the Olympics. These shared arrangements are a positive. It ensures that Australians are getting it. But on the fundamental issue, Labor supports the anti-siphoning list. We're standing by it, and we wouldn't support, for instance, taking tennis off the anti-siphoning list.
If I can go to an issue that's of concern, I guess, to many parents, and that is protecting their kids online from online predators. You both have different approaches on the best way to protect kids in the home. Can I invite you both, and we'll start with you, sure, Stephen Conroy, to talk about your plans and why they're better than the government's current plans?
Yeah, well, look, Helen and the government have done some really good things in this area. This is an area which is above politics. Everyone wants to make sure kids aren't being harassed, bullied, or worse on the internet. So the government have introduced a filter scheme. We support that. They're putting more money into policing. We support that. But what Labor has argued since March of last year is that we should have mandatory filtering at the ISP level. Let's stop this filth getting into people's lounge rooms before it leaves the ISP. So put the block on there. That's what Labor's been arguing. We support all of the things the government has done, but we believe there's this extra step which will give added protection. No system will be perfect without the parents being involved, and parents need to play an important role here. But we think an added step that can help protect children is to have this mandatory, compulsory filtering taking place before it gets into your lounge room.